The special meeting of the Ascension Parish Council will be called to order. Tonight, our invocation will be led by Mr. Leroy Sullivan, Mayor of the City of Donaldsonville.
Father God, as we come this hour in the evening, Father God, as always, we come with our heads bowed, but in humble submission to you. And Father God, as we come before you this evening, we ask you to please, Lord, to just bless each and every one that's here tonight. Father God, we ask you to please, Lord, to just bless us individually. We ask you to bless us collectively. Father God, we ask you to please, Lord, to bless this council, that as they take care of the business of Ascension Parish, we ask that you please, Lord, just be in the midst. And we ask that you allow them to do everything decently and in order. These and all blessings we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. Our pledge tonight will be led by Mr. Raymond O'Quinn, Chairman of the Donaldsonville City Council.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Raymond. Roll call, Ms. Cinnamon. Absent tonight, Mr. George Valentine, Mr. Dennis Cullen, and Mr. Chris Lohr. Public comment sign-in period. Tonight, when we open public hearing, you'll be allowed to sign in and talk on the public hearing agenda for 3 minutes. Next, we'll have Mr. John Diaz with our public hearing to provide the community with information regarding the redistricting process and receive public input. We will open public hearing right after John's presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As always, it's a pleasure. Before we did the last two public hearings, it was our intention is to do a little presentation to give people background on the whole concept of redistricting. It's not like a SPUD or an issue that you guys deal with daily and the public is well aware of it. It's something that comes up every 10 years. That said, there were some comments after the last public meeting that it turned into an information session and not a public hearing, and that is not our intention. So I would thoroughly enjoy doing it again. I know you guys have seen it a lot, but I think there's a lot of things that our whole point was to enhance the public comment section with knowledge and some of the facts. So, you know, it's up to you guys if you want to do the presentation. I don't mind doing it. I want to make sure that you don't think that it takes away from the public comment period. Go with it? Very good. All right, guys. This is, for lack of better terms, going to be a redistricting 101 class. I'm going to go over real quick some redistricting terminology just so as we go through this process, everybody knows what we're talking about when we use words like deviation and ideal population size. We'll talk briefly about the 2010 population data. In essence, that's what drives a large portion of how these districts are going to be shaped. And then third, we'll take the legal considerations that we always have to consider throughout this process. All right, real quick, and guys, I don't know if I'm in y'all's way or not. The ideal population size is essentially calculated by taking the total population of the parish and dividing it by the number of council districts. If you take 107,215, which is the parish's population, you divide it by the number of council districts, it comes out to 9,747. Ideally, that's what all our districts have to be. Just to give you a little background, because of our population growth, the ideal population size in Ascension Parish for a council district has grown about 3,000 since 2000. You'll also see the next term is district deviation. You also see district deviation. Essentially, that's the allowable variance that we have in creating districts. We can be over the ideal population size by 5% or minus 5%. That raw number is 487. So the bottom line is the maximum, when we're done with this process, the maximum that a parish councilman's population can be is 10,234. The smallest of the minimum a parish council district can be is 9,260. So some of the concepts you'll hear constantly as we go through this process. Yes, sir. Yeah. All right, as I pointed out earlier, one of the big driving factors in redistricting and how these boundaries are going to change is driven in large part by population growth. And I brought a pointer. This is a map of all the precincts in Ascension Parish, essentially shaded on the population growth between 2000 and 2010. A couple things stand out. First, with the exception of a couple precincts here in Gonzales, and one or two, approximately 3 precincts in Donsonville. For the most part, across the whole parish, there was growth. But what you will notice, and I have it thematically shaded, so your dark green or areas where you had the most growth, like for example, this precinct in 10 years grew by 230%. This precinct here in Geismar and Dutchtown grew by 134. But what you'll notice is the population is not evenly distributed as far as the population growth is concerned. In this region of the parish, you had, for the most part, I'd call robust growth if you compare it to the state standards, but for the most part, when you compare it to the parish standards, which grew by 38%, there was not really as much growth here as we had in other parts of the parish. In fact, as I pointed out in the last meeting, if you take a line, go down 44 to Cornerview, go west to the Iberville Parish, that region represented 60% of all our population growth between 2000 and 2010. So that's going to force a shift in districts. It's no way around it. Population drives this in large part. So if all your surplus population is in this area, it's inevitable that these districts begin to move this way. And with the exception of the area here in Donsonville, which is basically the result of Pelican Point, there has been no substantial growth here. There's been modest growth. All right, this is a snapshot of the population shifts and what impact they had on each council district. So the red lines are our council districts. So you can see this is Council District 1. You'll notice that number below it. All this does is indicate that Council District 1, when compared to the ideal population size, is deficient in population by 2,986. So as you kind of walk through the parish, you'll see that everything to the east of these districts, 9, 6, 10, 2, 3, 1, with the exception of 2, are all negative in population. In fact, if you sum up the deviations here, they're down 8,500 people. So at some point, in order to make these districts solvent, we need to find 8,500 people. The flip side of that is if you sum up the deviations in these districts in 8, 4, 7, 11, and 5, they're overpopulated by about 8,500 people. So it's inevitable that the shifts in districts begin to go in this direction in some fashion or format. One of the other considerations we have to be very conscious of is the fact that Louisiana is considered a Section 5 state under the 1964 Voting Rights Act. Bottom line is, and this is directly from the DOJ's publication in the Federal Register, we have to be conscious of reaching benchmark in our districts, which are currently Districts 1 and District 3. But real quick, just the plan has a discriminatory effect under the statute if, when compared to the benchmark plan, the submitting jurisdiction cannot establish that it does not result in retrogression in the position of racial minorities with respect to their effective exercise of electoral franchise. Now, the bottom line is we cannot retrogress. We cannot dilute minority voting districts unless it's unavoidable. And we talked at the last meeting, in some cases it's going to be unavoidable. And we've tried everything we can to get them back to benchmark. Real quick, the plans, when we send them to Justice, the proposed plans that we send will be compared to benchmark. And just so everybody knows what benchmark is, essentially benchmark is the current districts you're serving in now with the 2010 population. So that's where we got to get back to as far as our 2 Section 5 districts, which are Districts 1 and 3. Some other terms you'll hear about, and once again, these are not deal killers in the sense that Justice, if your plan is not what they would consider compact, won't necessarily reject it. These are second-tier issues that you need to be conscious of as you draw districts. One is contiguity. Obviously, the districts have to connect. You should try to draw districts as compact as possible. You should always try to keep communities of interest together, and then the core existing of district boundaries should be intact. This is something that they look at simply to protect. There's been cases where you take 6 members of a council and they draw 5 other members into the same district just to get rid of them. At some point, you have to protect the core of each district, or if not, justify why you actually drew several members in together. Our draw strategy, and this is just a broad outline of how we had to approach it. Our first approach was to draw Districts 1 and 3, and there's several reasons behind that. One, we had to meet 2 criteria in order to get these districts where they needed to be. One, we had to get them within deviation from a population standpoint, and we had to get them back to their benchmark, which, as I mentioned last week and I mentioned again, it's going to be very tough to get them back to their exact benchmark. District 1 is, right now its benchmark is 76% African American. The problem with trying to get that back to 76 or keeping it at 76 is that he's down 2,900 people, a little more than that. And the only place that he can go on the West Bank from District 2. In fact, if you look at everything that's on the West Bank that's not in 1, it's only 53% African-American population. So it's going to be really tough to take this district into this area and maintain it at 76. Once again, we'll try everything we can. And in the Justice Department documentations, there is provisions for unavoidable retrogression, but it's incumbent upon us to prove to them that we couldn't do anything else, and we couldn't get it back to 76%. You also look at District 3, which was the next district we had to take care of because it had 2 criteria we had to meet. It was essentially down by 1,100. Its benchmark right now is 62, and I think the best we could get it is at 61. It's really, really tough. He's in a sense, he's landlocked. There's no population north of this that helps this district get us to benchmark. Absolutely not. I mean, it's just, it's almost like just a barrier that once you get past, his percentages start dropping. So in essence, we had to move him into the Gonzales area, and we was able to get him, if I'm not mistaken, back up to 61. After we finished 1 and 3, this is where the dominoes begin to fall, and you'll hear this throughout this whole process, that the population dominoes, it's just unavoidable. And most people realize in this process that most council members' solutions then become somebody else's problems, because as soon as you solve somebody's district, you've 9 times out of 10 had to take it from someone else. So our draw strategy was, once we took roughly 2,400 people out of District 2 to put in District 1 to make him solvent, we, in essence, underpopulated District 2. And so we had to then push District 2 in this direction to take from 6. And then once we had 6 solvent, it was a function of taking these districts in the center and pushing them, which were extremely underpopulated by the time we finished, solving Districts 1 and 3's problem, and then pushing them toward the west. This is where your surplus population is. You can see District 8 has 4,700 overpopulated. District 4 is 2,800 overpopulated. So this is where your surplus population is. These are the districts that were low in deviation, and so it's inevitable that they begin to push in this direction in some way, shape, or form. Real quick, I'll run through the 3 plans that we presented at the last meeting. Now, once again, these are concepts. I was hoping to put these up here to generate conversation and likes and dislikes and what you don't, what areas you would like to change. But before I go through each one of them individually, I just want to point out that we took some objective measures of compactness, and these are mathematical formulas that are used to measure the degree of compactness of each district. And the way the measures work is it goes 0 to 1. So a 0 means you're absolutely not compact, and a 1 means you're perfectly compact. Now, there's no such thing as a 1. These formulas all use circles to measure compactness, because a circle is essentially the most compact geographical shape you can have. So if you actually had a 1, somehow you drew a district that was a circle. But basically what we were able to do is compare these 3 plans, concept plans that are, just things to generate dialogue. I compared their measures of compactness to the current boundaries. And you can see in some of the measures, and each measure uses a different formula. Some of them have their own strengths and weaknesses, but I thought I would put several up here just so everyone can see. But you can see in most cases, we either are more compact in the plans we're proposing, or we're right on the money and within 0.1%. And the reason I want to point that out is, and as I pointed out at the last meeting, I don't want people to mistake the fact that a lot of these districts look different with the fact that they may not be compact, because they are compact, just as compact as the other, but they look different, and sometimes that's hard to distinguish. All right, Plan 1. I'll walk through it real quick. As I pointed out in the previous district, District 1 was down about 2,900. We were able to take 2,400 people from District 2 in this district. We split, the only precinct that we split on the West Bank would be Precinct 50, where we connected the community of Lemonville with the district that's anchored in Donsonville, as opposed to putting the district anchored in Santa Maria. The second district we drew was the third district, to get him within population and get him as close to benchmark as we could. We split this one precinct here in Gonzales, which is basically behind Chip's Grocery. I think it's the Oak Terrace community. And we also added Precinct 42, this is Highway 30, this is Highway 44. So basically this is a Southwood subdivision, if I'm not mistaken, and there's a large apartment complex here on 44. By adding these 2 geographic units to District 3, he was now solvent. Now, of course, realize what happens is, now all of a sudden, Cullen, who was about 1,800, or District 10, that was about 1,800 underpopulated, all of a sudden, he's just lost another 1,200. So he becomes now, you know, close to 3,000 people too low. The same thing happens with 2. When you take 2,400 people out of his district, all of a sudden, District 2 needs additional population. So what we did with District 2 was essentially added this precinct here in Sanamon. It borders on 22 going to the Diversion Canal, and he still needed about 500 more people to get 2 solvent. So we split precinct 27, and he takes about 513 people from this area. Once again, that got him solvent, and that's his solution, but his solution now becomes 6's problem. At this point, 6 needed to then go into these 2 precincts in their entirety to get within deviation in order to get District 5, which was very close to being within the range without any changes at all, but was just needed to lose around 200 to 300 people. What we do is we took the edge of this precinct here, which is the Pinecrest subdivision. We put that in 6 so that 5 would be solvent. Now at this point, Districts 10 and 9 are woefully underpopulated. It's you know, by the time you take these 2 precincts, which is about 3,500 people, out of District 9, which was already about 2,500 down, it really needs to find population. And so this is kind of where the districts really start to shift to the west. You can see we take District 10. He has to take this part of current District 9 in order to have a bridge to get to the west. This is Cannon Road Park, and this is the southern part of the current District 9, this green line. You know, we make a couple different variations here to get him to the to get him west. We split precinct 13, which was in Council District 4, but was taken out to get him within deviation. And essentially, we push these districts, with the exception of going into District 4, as far west as we can and keep District 8 solvent. The bottom line is District 8, which currently runs all the way to the airline here, had so much population that he has to be pushed back to St. Landry Road, which then connects with 74 and then down the interstate. So this is, for the most part, his boundary, and you know, these deficient areas, or these areas that are deficient in population, have to somehow consume the population in this area. The only difference between the next 2 plans I'm going to show you are the configurations of 10, 9, and 11. I'm not saying that we can't make adjustments to 6 or 5 or 7 or 4 or 8. These are just placeholders. But the bottom line is these districts that are on the perimeter are landlocked. They can't take from Livingston or Baton Rouge or Iberville, so you're kind of limited in which direction you can draw them. So for the most part, the next 3 plans you look at will primarily be shifts, or not primarily, they will be in their entirety, just changes in 11, 9, and 10. I'm not saying that the final plan that we can't do anything about these districts or any adjustments to them. I'm just, you know, these are placeholders giving you an idea of the magnitude of the shift and the direction of the shift. The demographics for proposed Plan 1, you can see District 2, we got him to 73. Once again, his benchmark is 76. District 3, we got to 61. His benchmark is 72. We may be able to bring that up a little bit, but I really think that it's going to be unavoidable retrogression, and you know, it's inevitable. All right, District Plan 2, some of the differences, essentially District 17 and Plan 1 was split along the airline between District 11 and District 9. And this plan in its entirety, it's included in District 9. This is the Bishop Woods area, it's commonly referred to. And you can see, too, to give 9 a bridge further into here. We then pick up a little bit of 11. But for the most part, and once again, I'm not saying these 3 combinations are the only combinations. I'm just showing you some of the different options, and that we can go from there. So for the most part, your changes are here, and in this area, the changes in Plan 2 that were different than 1 were in this area and in that area. Once again, the demographics don't change for 1 and 3 because we didn't impact these districts in the subsequent plans. Plan 3, one of the big differences is that we take 17 in its entirety and put it in 11. The difference is, you know, in the first plan, I split District 17 along airline. The second plan, I put all of Precinct 7 in District 9. And this plan, I put it all in 11. As a result of him taking all of 11, 7 can then go further, I'm sorry, 9 can go further in this area. Once again, I'm not saying that these are the only 3 combinations that these districts have been drawn. I'm just throwing some ideas out there and some concepts so that people can start actually debating something that's real and tangible and we can look at and measure the impact. Once again, demographics don't really change for districts 1 and 3. In fact, they don't change at all for 1 and 3. And once again, I'm not saying that they can't change. I'm just, at this point, we've drawn them as many ways as possible, and we're somewhere in that. And even if we prove them, I can almost attest that it's mathematically impossible. Even if we improve them from this current plan or this position in this current plan, it's mathematically impossible to get these back to benchmark. So they, regardless of if we can get 73 to 74, 75, I just don't think it's possible to get it to 76. And with that, guys, any questions or? Yes, ma'am. Oh, well, I don't know. Do you need to open it?
Council, before we get to public hearing, any of y'all have any questions of John? Councilman Joseph?
John, I guess, everybody know I was gonna ask the question. In Plan 1 in District 1, understanding that the population on the west side is about 10,900. And in the jailhouse, there are approximately 491 of them.
Correct.
And that's in my, your proposed district. So if I take those 400, 500 out of it, actually, I'm only having a population of 9,000 voters. I mean, and what you call, not voters, but 9,000.
Right.
Compared to everyone else, that they would be more close to the ideal number. And that's one problem I do have.
Now, the thing about the prison was I was actually trying to connect Lemonville with Donsonville, or anchored in the district from Donsonville. Your problem is, and I know it's really hard to see this, but I'm limited to how I can draw districts based on the census geography that the Census Bureau has decided I can draw it by. And I cannot connect that using this configuration to Lemonville without going through the prison, or that census block that has the prison. So that's the problem there. You become isolated, or you build districts that are not contiguous. So that's.
So, and well, I guess that's the term what we call block.
Right, census
Building
block.
Okay. And that's my other question was, how many precincts can you split? There's a number, or you trying to prevent it?
There is no number of precincts. There's no limit, maximum or minimum. But if you read the Secretary of State's, his guidelines, you can't split them just because you decided to split them. You have to be able to justify that you split it because you needed to do it in order to achieve the redistricting guidelines, whether it's Section 5, one man, one vote, compactness. But for example, this precinct here, which has about 8,000 people in it, I would love to just split that one so that on election day it's more manageable. And we can't unless we can find some redistricting reason to justify splitting it. So there's no limit, but we have to justify. We can't just split because we, wanted to split it. We have to justify it as we have to give them a reason, and it's got to be relative to redistricting and achieving the traditional redistricting principles. So.
My other question is that big old word you always use, benchmark plan.
Mm-hmm.
That benchmark plan, does it help a minority district more than it help any other district?
The benchmark, according to Section 5, is only relative to districts that are Section 5. So it would only be 1 and 3. Yeah.
All right, that's what I thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, John.
Any more, council? This time I'd like to have a motion to open public hearing, please. Motion by Councilman Todd Lambert, second by Councilman Benny Johnson. Anyone want to speak on redistricting, please come forward, sign in with Ms. Simon. You'll be allowed 3 minutes. I do have one speaker already. First speaker will be Mr. Kerry Williams.
Thank you very much. My question is, I've been living in Smoke Bin, God knows, 20 years. It's not the same because every time we have election, our people do not get out and vote. I have a problem with that because I saw some things and I heard some things. It's not y'all problem. It's just because we need more people to come out and vote for the redistricting of our district. I'm just saying we need to work together as a team, not behind nobody, not against one another. Work as a team. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next speaker will be Mayor Leroy Sullivan.
Thank you, and good evening again. I just want to point out the fact that we understand that we, at present, we have 3 council districts on the west bank of Ascension Parish, and because of the growth on the east bank, we have to go down to 2. And we understand that that is inevitable, that this will happen. The concern that I have is when you look at the redistricting and going into the city of Donaldsonville, and it's sort of zigzag around a few areas, and my concern, and I'm just wondering why we can't have a more of a flat line instead of going, say, around Opelousas and around Louisiana Square. You're zigzagging here and there, and then coming back to it. To me, it makes no sense as to why we're doing that. When you're saying that the minority population is at 73% and you can't get it anywhere closer than that, why are we cutting up the downtown area as much as we are? And 2, when he talked about not being able to get closer to 76%, taking in ABEN into District 1 wouldn't accomplish that. That's the only question and concerns that I have. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. Next speaker will be Mr. Raymond O'Quinn, please.
Yes, we just looked at the proposed plan, kind of the last minute at the city council meeting Tuesday. I won't speak for the entire council, but I think everybody was pretty comfortable with it as it affects Donaldsonville. I'll reiterate what the mayor said, that the zigzagging lines could be a little confusing. Basically, Louisiana Square, which has no population, is carved out of one district. If you came straight across Opelousas Street right here, it would be Opelousas to the river and Railroad Avenue to the city limits. It may not be quite as confusing. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Do you have any more speakers, please?
Yes, my name is Donald Hambrick.
Sign in, Mr. Hambrick, please, with
Where should I sign?
the secretary, sir. Right here, sir.
Okay. Yeah, I have one question. You say you have to keep the benchmark. Why can't they cross the river to keep the benchmark? Say, what is it, District 1? Your district, District 1? Why can't they cross the river? I think Shake Snyder's district, it crosses the river. Is there any reason that can't be done? Who answered the question, Mr. Diaz?
Yeah, you want me to answer them all at the end, or?
Oh, that's fine. That's one
Yeah.
Mr. Delaney, sir?
Yes, Lieutenant Delaney. The question I have is, it's based upon the population, and I saw that he had the numbers where certain districts can have the max and the min. My question is, do we have to have 11 districts? Can you downsize the district and still accomplish the same thing?
Anybody else? This time I'll ask for a motion to close public hearing, please.
Motion to close.
Yeah.
I have one, all right, ma'am. At the end of the public hearing, Mr. Diaz will explain some of the questions that were asked. I have Mrs. Garrison?
Yes, Tamikio Garrison.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm going to piggyback off of what Mayor Leroy Sullivan said about potentially adding A-bend and giving us another opportunity. I'm sorry, but I didn't actually just heard about the public hearing, so I don't know where it was advertised. But I want to have an opportunity to view some other proposed plans besides these three that have a more of an impact in Donaldsonville, District 1. Thank you.
I'll ask for a motion to close public hearing, please.
Move to close.
Motion by Councilman Ken Chestnut, second by Councilman Adrian Thompson. At this time, Mr. Diaz will answer some of the questions.
Yeah, real quick, relative to the mayor's question and zigzagging in Donaldsonville, essentially, we followed the existing precinct boundaries. Now, we can't justify making changes to those precincts for redistricting and for District 1. So if there is a desire to straighten out those precincts, as I was telling Ken earlier, you know, you can't just change them for any reason, and we can't change those precincts in Georges, but we can justify changing those precincts in Donaldsonville, you know, and cutting some off the top. So that can be done, and that is legal with the Secretary of State. Relative to A-bend, your answer is yes. That A-bend would get us to 74% in District 1, which is about 2 points away from deviation. There's just one problem, and I'm still trying to check if it's legal, and I don't think it's a legal issue. It's more of a aesthetic issue. Is once again, I was telling you guys, I'm limited to how I can draw these districts based on the census blocks, and this whole region right here is one census block. And so if I take that, the only connector I have for two in Johnsonville is crossing the river and following the lake. It's the only landmass I can have to get it. And there was this court case in Virginia in 2003, I believe, or 2002, where they tried to draw a district that went into a river, went down the river, and then came back onto the other side of, onto the other bank. And the court said that you can't do that. When you cross a river, you have to come up on a piece of landmass. Now, I need to go back and check to define how big that piece of landmass has to be, you know, and so that's what I'm trying to research now. Because technically, there is a piece on the side of that census block that runs there that has 14 people. I don't know if they live on the other side of the levee or what, but, so to answer your question, though, yes, it would get it to 74%. And so it's definitely something we have to look at. Crossing the river to get Council District 1 solvent is not going to work, because at the same time, he's not solvent from a percentage point, nor is Adrian. And so it'd be, you know, Rob and Peter to pay Paul. If we went took Oliver to the East Bank, then we would drop Adrian, and it just so it would create another problem. And I don't think it's worth crossing another major physical boundary, you know, to get him a little closer to benchmark. When if we can get him to 74, I think we're close enough. And Adrian's at 61, and I'm confident we can prove that it's unavoidable. I think we're fine there.
But instead of doing Adrian or Mr. Thompson, what about Mr. Shakespeare?
Outside of Adrian's district, and when you start looking in Kent's district, on the East Bank, you're into communities that are 99% white. And so to take Oliver into those areas would do, you know, more damage than, so that's the issue. And then downsizing to fewer districts, that's the prerogative of the council. Just tell me who gets thrown under the bus, and you know, but that's something that I think also would have to go to the home rule charter and a vote of the people. So I don't know if we have the time frame to approach that issue now, but it can be done. And then, did I answer your question on A-bend when I answered the mayor's question? Yeah. Yeah. Census blocks are the lowest level of geography that the Census Bureau collects population numbers at and reports out to. You know, so basically, you know, I think statewide there's like 236,000 census blocks. In Ascension Parish, I think there's 65,000 census blocks, and they're small units of geography that we can use to redistrict, and they all follow physical boundaries. And they have to follow physical boundaries, and in the process of redrawing, we can only select by census blocks. We can't create imaginary boundaries, because I then can't report back to the census what the true population is of a census boundary that I just arbitrarily split. It tells me it has 100 people in it. I don't know how many people live to the left or to the right. So you have to stick with those the census block geography. Yeah.
Okay, I would like to announce we have another special meeting on June 2nd in the East Bank in the courthouse at 6 p.m. with
Yeah.
Mr. Diaz.
Uh, Can-
Is it, I'm sorry, 31st. May 31st.
Can I briefly, and I don't know if this is out of order, and just tell me and we'll correct it, can I propose a redistricting timeline for you guys just to you know, I'm not saying this is how it's got to be, but let's, obviously, we had our public meeting tonight, so we've reviewed the 3 concept plans. I would hope that you guys get input from your constituents and have some input yourself to, you know, how we should you know, alter some of these districts. Because what I'd like to do for the May 31st meeting is take all that input and present some winnowed down combination of maybe 2 plans or even maybe 3 plans, depending on how many different combinations you guys come up with.
Anything that's brought to the council needs to be conveyed to you throughout this week. or-
Exactly. And if that's how y'all want to proceed and y'all want to present some new maps on the 31st, then I would recommend that everybody gets me everything they need by Sunday at 5 o'clock so that on Monday morning they could be on the website and everybody has 2 days to review them. Once again, I don't suggest we vote on anything. You take more public comments, you guys debate it, discuss it, and then maybe the first part of next week, if we think we have a consensus, if we think we've achieved everybody's you know, criteria and their desires, then maybe early part of next week we take a vote on it. You know, I don't know if you want to call it a special meeting, and that's just the timeline is subject to you guys. Yeah, so.
Councilman Thomas.
Chairman Bell, I would like to suggest that our next meeting would be on June the 1st instead of the 31st. It's 31st Tuesday?
Yes.
Okay, it's bad time for me.
Well, I'm sorry,
Well-
Adrian, we've already advertised, it's in the paper.
You still have time to re-advertise. Today is Thursday. You still have time to re-advertise.
Well, I think we're gonna leave it on the 31st. It's out in the public and. if the
I
viewers-
kind of disagree with it. I think we need to bring it to a vote or whatever, because I'm scheduled to work and this affect my district like it affect the rest of y'all districts, and I can't get off.
Councilman, do I have any input from the council?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there is a time when everybody is gonna be available.
I have no problem.
I have no
assuming
problem.
You can get it, I mean, you
Moving
have
it,
time to re-advertise or?
But you'd have to find out if that's the criteria when everybody's available to be there, then you'd have to find out everybody's working schedule and everything.
You've done it for other stuff, Kent.
I understand that. I'm not trying to say it, but I mean, it's,
Council Thompson, let us research this with
Yeah.
Tony tomorrow and some, if we can move.
I'd just like to
it.
find out first if
Okay.
it affects somebody else. It might be 2 people that on another, that
Well, I
might not be able
understand
to.
what Councilman Thompson's saying. It's
Right.
directly his district is involved.
If we can do it, we need to do it.
not gonna be able to
Okay,
make it.
and we, tomorrow morning, bright and early, hope.
Benny's off. I gotta work Wednesday, so,
Wow.
yeah, either way it goes, it's gonna.
You working nights, Adrian? Another thing we could possibly do is move this to 4 o'clock or something like that.
That's what time I go in.
Ah, We'll look at everything we can tomorrow.
Well, it affect my district and affect Councilman Joseph's district, and I would like to be here, and I don't want to miss the meeting.
Okay, let's do what we can do. Okay, Councilman, I'll need a motion to adjourn, please.
Motion, Mr. Chairman. Second.
Motion to adjourn, thanks to our Assemblyman Lester, George Diaz, Clint Falcon, John Conley, and Yogi Wilson. And thank you, Mr. Diaz.